build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Longbangers. I'm Matty.
Hello, I'm Colin.
And I'm John.
And you're joining us on an episode that we weren't really planning on recording. We were sort of doing this instead of short bangers tonight. Such was the events that have happened at Easter Road. This week we felt this was more pressing than talking nonsense for half an hour. So a special episode, and special in inverted commas, I suppose, depends how special it ends up. We've got Tuesday night's game to talk about, which was a bit of a shit show in the end, and also the prospect of more billions coming into Hibs after we got excited in the summer about the City Group maybe joining in and all
I was
these
going to
things.
say more billions. I couldn't remember the original billions that came in.
Well, mind when do you remember when the rumours were starting about somebody buying with Ron Gordon eventually, and it was like the Barclays brothers that were first announced, or not announced, but first rumoured, and you were looking at it and folk were posting links to their Wikipedia and everything, and they were like obviously super wealthy, and you go, oh fucking hell.
What was it they were involved in again? Was it wasn't Harrods, it was something down south, wasn't it?
It was something like that. Was it Lloyd's maybe? I can't remember. But Barclays would be the obvious one, but I don't think it was like the Barclays Bank, the famous euphemism. Or Cockney rhyme and slang, whichever it is. Anyway, it was typical Hibs at that time that we didn't end up with a billionaire. I mean, did I mean any disrespect to the Gordon family, who have done, in my opinion, a very good job, but they're
probably fabulously wealthy.
I don't want to talk down how much money they've got or how much they put into the Hibs, but they're not like the Qataris or that have or the Saudis that have jumped into other clubs. So it's like we got like a typically Hibs moderate version, a super wealthy bankroller, didn't we? Like that's kind of what we ended up with. And now there's a bit of talk of somebody who is a genuine US billionaire looking to help us out a wee bit. And I'm very excited about the prospect, but we'll talk about that in a wee bit. First of all, how are you both doing? Colin, how are you doing?
All right, mate, I'm actually typing a message in my work here. I'm bashing away on Teams in the background.
Oh, yeah.
For reasons that I'm Joe working, like one for two places at once. I'm all right, though. I'm cold. I'm going for a run in an hour.
Oh, yeah?
Aye.
Nice one.
She's training, so while she's training, give me something to do.
You're going to do that? Fair dues. John, how about you?
Fine. Also a wee bit chilly. Had a wee run last night that was quite nice. Not that I'm planning on getting into running or anything. It was just an opportunity to stretch the legs for the first time in a wee while. How are you? You good?
Yeah, been good. Been busy on my own business. They started setting things up, getting a wee website out and published and so on. So not quite exactly where I want it to be yet, but you know what the expression is: don't let perfection get in the way of progress and all these things. So it's up. We've got to start, and we'll see how it goes.
You're going to start talking about agile methodology or something next?
Nah. That's no for me.
It just means do it quickly, doesn't it?
React to things. That's it. Be able to react quickly. Right. Speaking of reacting to things, which is a nice wee segue there, John. Tuesday night, Hibs 2, Wraith 2, Hibs 2, Ross County 2. John, start with you. Give us just your general thoughts on the game, and then I'll get the same for you, Colin, and then we'll dig into it a wee bit.
I was a little bit surprised by the lineup, but I understood, obviously, with one eye on a semi-final this weekend. First half was a wee bit quiet. I can't remember when it was that we scored. Was it just before half-time? Went in and 1-0 up. Second half, brighter. Me and Colin had a wee chat about substitutes again. Like it was partly because of the semi-final on the horizon, but also wanted to see the game out. And then I conceded a couple and came away feeling quite disappointed.
Colin, what about you?
It was walking pace. I think you tweeted that, and that wasn't the way I was talking. That was like it was fucking so slow the first half, and then we got away with it, getting a goal, and you almost feel a bit better, but you're still coming in thinking, what's he coming in? Because me and John were in the fancy bit, so we went in at half time, and we got a Bovril, by the way.
Did you?
Massive and got us Bovrils. Aye. So it was good then.
Did it come in the Bovril Cup like you would get at the kiosk,
It was like
or
she
did
must
you
have
get a
been at
mug?
the kiosk. I think she must have been at the kiosk.
Wow.
And so that was good. But anyway, so I was slow and you were going, it's a bit shite, but at least we're winning. And then you get the second goal, which was a good goal, and you go, we started talking, what, 55? It must have been 55 minutes, John. They make subs now. That's what we said. And
Mhm.
this is not hindsight, because we went, it's too early. We've not got this game won yet. And then he made the subs, and then we didn't win the game. But the pace never really picked up a wee bit after half time, but it never. It's just lethargic as anything. And the subs are funny. I suppose we'll get on it. Have you asked for talking points in that?
Well, we've kind of got some volunteered, which we'll just we'll go through as we go on.
Because the subs to me, like it was it. I'm not criticising any individuals, but you brought the sub on and then you go, he brings other subs on later and you go, oh, how's he jumped ahead of Josh Campbell in the pecking order? For example, if you try to rest Newell, like you get the rest Newell thing, so he went down with injury on Saturday. There's rumours he's been carrying one. You think, well, fair enough, he's rested them, panicked and brought him on for the last 10. But if you were going to try and no bring him on and you're bringing another midfielder on, I'm not sure how Campbell's found himself so far in the list. But so disappointing. It's disappointing.
What do you think of the starting lineup, John? So there was quite a few changes. We had Wallacott in for Marshall, Stevenson in for Abita, we had Levitt in for Newell, and Lafondra came back in for Boyle. Tavares kept his place. I'm trying to think off the top of my head if there were any other changes. I think that's it. Did you feel that was a team that was picked to win the game?
I said this at the time, but the lineup reminded me of games in years gone by, particularly when it's like the sort of early stages of the cup where you play a slightly weakened team, but with an opportunity to try and give guys that had been on the bench or maybe coming back for injury an opportunity to play. So I think Levitt was maybe the prime example there. He's not had as much game time as he would have liked because of the injury that he got against Lucerne. I thought he had a reasonably good game.
Mm-hmm.
The other ones, it felt like the other ones gave me a little cause for concern because it interrupted what's otherwise, I think, been a reasonably static starting 11 for a while now. But I mean, still with the same shape. I didn't have any concerns with Jair out on the right-hand side. I know he was going to be the focal point because he's not been as good as we would have liked in the last however many months. Trying to think who else. Stevenson felt like it wasn't so much the personnel, it was the disruption, I think, that it represented that gave me a little bit cause for concern.
Colin, it looked like the team was picked with one eye on the semi-final. Do you have a problem with that?
I didn't at 2-0.
Mm-hmm.
I think not only was the team picked with the semi-final in mind, though, I think the early substitutions were as well. And that's what I didn't like. I think it was too early to make the subs or those subs. But I've not got a massive problem with it, I suppose, no. But because we never won, then it's open to criticism, isn't it?
Aye. I think you make a good point there, right? So at 2-0, you're looking at it being pretty much a perfect evening. At that point, you've had the managers had the opportunity to play players that maybe haven't had as much time as they would have wanted. We've got a kind of comfortable looking win at that point, right? 2-0 up and not really looking in any trouble. So you think everything's going kind of swimmingly, but then the subs like you said there, Colin, it felt like they were premeditated rather than reacting to what was happening on the pitch.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it must have been, was it 55, 60 minutes he made the subs? So it was like
I'm sure we were talking about it around about the 60-minute mark and thinking that it's too early at this point, and I'm sure the substitutes followed around about the sort of 65th, 70th minute. That's when it started coming on.
I thought it was it.
But I think one of the problems.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think one of the goals came reasonably soon after we'd made a couple of substitutions, so it's almost like the impact that those substitutions were meant to have was immediately lost because you'd conceded.
Aye. But let's go back to the first half, Colin. You mentioned the pace of the game I couldn't believe how slow everything was, slow and ponderous, and even like so the team got a wee bit of criticism, or the crowd got nervous. Is probably a better way of putting it. But with goal kicks against Celtic and just passing it out for the back. Now, when we spoke about it on the podcast at the weekend, we didn't really have a problem with them sticking to that and trying to make it work. It wasn't so much the passing out for the back bit that was getting frustrating on Tuesday night. It was the fact that it was taking 20, 30 seconds for them just to put the ball down to actually take the kick in the first place. And
That was a weird one, eh?
aye,
It was so slow, but I even said to a boy at work yesterday, like Stevenson almost set the tone, like with wearing Under Armour. It's like, fuck this. You know what I mean? Like the fuck this tone, it's too cold.
We
No,
talked
like-
about it, and it was bizarre, like how something as simple as that, like how notable it was, because I don't remember the last time I've ever seen Stevens. Well, I said at the time that I thought it was long sleeves. I don't know whether it was Under Armour, but it was
Under Armour.
unusual.
Yeah.
I think that is the first time Lewis Stevenson's sort of fortitude has ever been called into question on any podcast ever.
Mhm.
And do you think that? I mean, do you think that is a big factor? That everybody's looked at it and gone, Lewis isn't fancying this tonight. We'll just take it easy.
No, it's not taking it easy. It's the mentality of, oh, it's fucking cold tonight. It's dark. The clocks have went. No, like, and I'm not saying that's all what he was thinking, but it sends it like, I don't know. It maybe sounds a bit shy. I remember Arsenal in the old days, like when they were good. The captain decided if they wore long sleeves or short sleeves, and everybody had to do it, and it was almost like the captain led the way and all that, right? And I just thought, it sounds a bit shy, like when I'm saying it, but he was wearing Under Armour. He doesn't normally wear Under Armour, and they were fucking like they didn't want to be there the whole time. It was like, can we just get through this? Because we like him on Saturday.
I had that sort of feel about it, to be fair, but let's just get this one out of the way.
Yeah.
I thought the first half was just turgid. Like, I can, there'll be Hibs net here is using that word and get upset because he thinks it's not right, but it does also fit this context. It was turgid on Tuesday night. It was just totally lacking anything. It was like with a couple of good moves in the half. Like, if you were to give credit where it's due, there were a couple of times where the football was really good, but it was sandwiched between just big periods of nothingness. But I found it very dull, very hard to watch, very hard to get excited about. However, we did go in 1-0 up with Yuan getting the goal. John, a bit of fortune about the goal?
I think it's taken a heavy deflection, isn't it? It's Ross Laidlaw is on his way down when the ball's like he's already going one direction. When the ball takes a deflection, it ends up going the opposite way. So I mean, the thing is, like, if you don't, it sounds daft, but if you don't take the shot, you don't score. He's taking the shot. He's got a lucky deflection. We've got the goal out of it.
Aye. And Colin, you mentioned that the start of the second half was better. What was different about the second half performance up until, I suppose, Jair's goal that made it better?
It just felt like there was a bit more urgency. Like maybe the goal gave them a boost and they thought, right, or maybe the message was go and get another one and the game's won. I don't know what it was, but it was about 55, 56 minutes that we got the second goal. It was almost like, let's just go and kill it off. But then we got the second and decided that was enough.
Cracking goal, John. Wasn't it? We clip up the line for Levitt, and then
I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I've watched the replays back, and I don't know exactly how to describe Levitt's pass, because it's almost like he's stabbed into the ground, and it's just taken like I remember Scott Allen used to play balls kind of similar to that, and I'm not drawing a comparison between the two players, but the way that it just sort of like dinked and spun away from the outstretched leg of the Ross County player, and then Tavares has run onto it, and I think because he's had a bit of sticky late, I remember thinking at the time, do the simple thing here, find the pass. And he's delayed, and I thought that the opportunity had passed him by, and then he's smashed it pretty much top corner.
Cracking finish, Colin, wasn't it?
It was. I was wanting him to pass the ball as well. And it was a good finish, but then I'd want my goalie to save that as well.
Would you?
Aye.
I thought he hit it hard enough that he
was,
didn't really give the keeper much
I didn't think
much
so.
a
No,
chance.
Like, I've seen the replay. I didn't even think it was in that high in the top. I think it was it wasn't even in the top corner. It was above halfway up, but it was sort of 3/4 of the way up. I would want the goalie to save that.
Is he? Are we saying that Tavares' shot was a good one, or are we saying that Laidlaw has been poor?
It was a good one, and he could do better though. It wasn't a brilliant one. It wasn't like world class. It wasn't like no goalie stopping that territory.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if he's
a
maybe
good goalie
given.
would save that. A good goalie would save it. It was a good effort. A good goalie would save it. That's what I'd say.
I just wonder if Tavares is maybe giving Laidlaw the eyes and kind of not quite sent him the wrong direction, but left him flat-footed.
Well, he did kind of whip it back, didn't he? So, no, possibly.
I think where he's hit it is no where you would expect it to go, and I think he's also, because the pass is on to Vente. I think he's done well. His gyre. I think that's probably what's done the keeper is that he's if he's going to shoot, he's going the other side. But I'm going to set myself up for the pass. So when he shoots where he shoots, I think that's what beats the goalie.
I actually think by the time he shoots, the pass is off.
You reckon?
Like he's waited that long, and it was the only option he really had left him because they looked like it got a bit congested in the middle because everybody's kind of thinking he's got to try and find them. I'm not taking any move for the goal. It was a good strike, and he took it well. I was pleased for him, and he enjoyed it. But I just think, like, if he was in goals for Hibs, we'd gone, should be doing better than that.
Maybe. What I liked about it was as a player who's, you talk about like redemption arcs and things like that, right? So Jaire's time at Hibs hasn't been all roses for him. He played against Celtic on Saturday. Montgomery was singing his praises after the game. He's backed up to start the game last night. And you sometimes see, like, with a player in that position that's kind of desperate to score, they can go one of two ways for them. It's like they take the shot and they fuck it up and everybody goes mental about it, and that's them, you never see them again. Or they do what Jair did and stick it in the back of the net. And I mean, the crowd gave it a huge cheer. Like, it was one of those ones, I think everybody was delighted for the lad, including us, I suppose. It was good to see. But then, right. Game's won, right, at that point. Right, game's won. You should be won at that point. Who wants to take it, right? So the goal we concede, Colin, come to you. But didn't seem to be in too much trouble. They get a free kick. Talk us through what happens next.
This is the OG, the first one, eh? Aye. So there was just the goalie come out quite far, which a lot of folk want all the time, because a lot of times when I'm at the ground, I hear folk shouting for the goalie to come, even when I think wouldn't want the goalie coming that far. But he did come that far, and he fucking missed it by a mile. And I think Bill Foley was just unlucky. He was behind it, hit off of me. It wasn't like the Deutsches OG or anything like that. It was just he was just there in the bottom because the goalie shouldn't be.
It was a really good finish. Like it's just kind of hit him on the laces and gone in the back of the net. But
I kept it down well.
It's bizarre. Like it should never come over, because you got two players challenging for it, and you've got Wallacott coming out trying to clear it. Like, the ball shouldn't land anywhere near Del Ferrier in that situation. Like, it's almost a freak series of events.
Did you think it was a mix-up because they brought a new keeper in? Like, Marshall probably wouldn't have come that far, right? Yeah. So he'd be expecting centre-halves to get it. You think centre-halves are going, fuck's the goalie doing there? Or, is it a miscommunication because we've tinkered with the back five? But we've been kind of calling for it, like, so we can't really complain too much because we have been calling for it. But that might be the kind of thing, until they play together a few times, that you have to expect.
Maybe. I mean, it was poor judgment, wasn't it? Really, to kind of come for it. I think if a goalkeeper's coming that far, they've got to get something on it. But it was miles away for it, or at least it looked like it was miles away for it for Massey. And you can't. As soon as he missed it, you're going, "Oh, fucking hell, here we go."
There wasn't much for Wallacott's performance on Tuesday that suggested to me that he's a keeper that's comfortable coming for balls in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he came for balls in there. It was bizarre.
He had a couple that he sort of fumbled. He had like easy ones, even that they sort of had to take a couple of goes at to get.
Yeah.
What do you think Montgomery's rationale was for selecting Wallacott and putting him into that game?
He mentioned resting Marshall.
Right.
Match, he said Marshall was just given a rest because of the number of games that he played. But I always think that's kind of quite bizarre with a goalie, yeah. Aye.
They didn't run about. Like, They bet they didn't even really revest. Yeah? Like, how far did you run? Like, a couple of 100 metres, just like taking goal kicks for the fucking far side, because I was wasting time in that. It's like, it's a step count rather than a running thing,
When it went 2-1, John, it was kind of inevitable what was going to happen next, wasn't it?
It felt inevitable, and I mentioned this to Colin, that one of the things I'd really like Hibs to improve upon, because it feels like it's been a bit of a staple at Easter Road for a number of years now, is that final 10 minutes. It feels like for however many managers we've had for a while now, and I'm even thinking maybe not so much Lennon, because I think his team became renowned for scoring goals quite late on. But certainly other managers, it seems like, and even managers before Lennon and managers since, we find ourselves in that final 10 minutes, and it seems like we invite pressure on. Even like Jack Ross was guilty of it. So remember when we were, I think, 2-0 up against Celtic, we conceded two. Banks conceded one, like pretty much with one of the final kicks of the ball. So I don't know how it is they improve upon that. I don't know if it's a case of trying to manage the game a little bit better so that the players aren't absolutely fucked. You know, Montgomery's talked about getting maximum effort out of his players, making use of 5 substitutions, for example, which is almost half the team that he can swap out. But that, and I think that tendency that Hibs have to concede goals in the final 10 minutes, it's like a self-perpetuating thing, because you start to worry about it and then you start conceding, so you start to worry about it more. So if we can make some efforts to improve upon that, it'll take a wee while, but that's something I'd like to see change.
Definitely. And I think it's a really good point that you make, that when it's in your head that you're susceptible to losing late goals, then the chances of you losing late goals increases. Colin, where do you put the blame, for want of a better word, for chucking that game?
I think the players, because I think chucking it. So we're talking at 2-0, but even at 2-0, we hadn't been that good.
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole attitude to the game wasn't on it all day, and then we went 2-0 up, and the thoroughly thought, fuck it, we'll just get in and get warm again, then, right, and all that, but the attitude was never right all day, and the goals kind of masked that a wee bit. So I think I'm blaming the players. Like I know there were substitutions I don't agree with. There were some players that mix up with the goalie and with the goalie getting dropped in. But when I seen the team before the game, I wasn't that bothered. Like, because I thought, well, Stevenson's fine in there. They'll be obviously kind of do 2 games in a row. And Neil's going to be carrying something. Fine with that. Well, what did new goalie in? And then Boyle's coming back still with a bad injury. So, you know, he's no massive real problems with it. I know it's not the first choice team. It's Ross County we're playing. We should be able to beat them with 3 or 4 players out. One who we've been shouting for to come in anyway. One who's fucking played about the 3rd or 4th most games that anybody's ever played for the club. Shouldn't be a big problem. Like, so I don't think it's really the selection. I think it's the attitude and the performance they put in.
Do you know? I wonder how accurate that is. So I was thinking, like, from Hibs' perspective, they've had Celtic at the weekend. You could argue that that's quite it's sort of like a high point on the fixture list, if you like, in terms of what's required. And then you've got the cup semi-final at the weekend, and then in the midst of that, you've got sort of what might be seen as like lowly Ross County. Whereas for Ross County, taking points off of Hibs would be a massive thing. So you've got like a complete contrast in terms of preparation and demands from the game, which shouldn't be. Well, it shouldn't be, because, like, in terms of the league and the 3 points are no less important than they were against Celtic or progressing in the cup against Aberdeen.
I think you make a good point, John. And you sometimes see it like, well, our game against Celtic at the weekend came after their European game. You know, where they've had a high and then they come to Easter Road and their performances.
And we've only had, so the last 3 or 4 games have been Hearts, Rangers, Celtic, so it's all been the biggest games, and we've got Aberdeen, who's the next one after that. And that one's just sandwiched in between. But the atmosphere at the ground was a bit like that. It kind of did a cold Tuesday night in Edinburgh.
It was thoroughly disappointing, and I think the problem we've got is that's the first round of fixtures done now. We've got 2 wins, and one of them against St Johnstone, who got their first win in the season just last night. Another one against Aberdeen when they were having a bit of a shit show as well. Not take anything away from that win, but 2 wins in the first round of fixtures is miles off where we need to be. And I know, like, Montgomery still only had 1 defeat, but we need to start getting 3 points on the board in these games ASAP. Right, we're going to run through some comments and then we'll talk about Bill Foley. So first of all, you and Macaulay said we were substituted to death. Jeff Ashton says you can't legislate for the keeper having a howler, but unless Rocky is struggling with an injury, don't change your defence, which is absolutely coasting. And it showed what Jago brings to the team. Hopefully Monty has learnt a lesson here. There was a bit of chat in our WhatsApp about substituting your centre half in a game. There's not a lot of teams there, and for me, there's quite good reason behind that. Montgomery's shown I think he's done it in almost every game that both Rocky and Hanlon have been fit. They've swapped them out. Where do you two stand on that?
I'm fine with it if you're winning comfortably and you just try to give somebody some minutes in that. But maybe you thought we were winning comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
Aye, it feels like it should be the sort of token 3 or 4 minutes towards the end of a game if you're going to be making that kind of substitution. Like I agreed with the comments about substituting the centre half. Like it feels like it should be as common as how often you substitute your goalkeeper. Like it's really only enforced when you have an injury.
Aye. Yeah, I just think there's a reason loads of teams didn't do it. And it is like you've got a settled defence.
Things like that.
Aye. And you just think, aye, we shot ourselves in the foot, no doubt. Right. McCancy said, a win and we're 5th. Or we would have been 5th, for fuck's sake. No excuse for that tonight. Back to that feeling when the first went in. We'll be lucky to get a draw now. William Turner said, jury out in the gaffer already. We still need a goalie, it seems. Is there any merit in that point of view with jury being out in the gaffer? Is it healthy to keep an open mind on it? Or
I think keep an open mind. I think it's just the words, jury out. It's like, well, I don't know if he's the right answer yet either, but so I suppose you could say the jury's out. All I'm saying is I'm watching and I'm supporting him while I decide.
Well, you're making up your mind.
When we say the jury's out, like that expression, do we mean that the prosecution have kind of laid a case for convicting him or not?
And that's what I mean about the terminology, because it's like it's a bit like more final, It's a bit like we're fucking deciding now if this boy's guilty or not.
Aye, it was like yet to be convinced, isn't it? Like, aye. Liamo Baldrini said he's been at it with the subs and team selection since he's came in. We've got away with it on occasions, but he was always going to come a cropper sooner or later. It's like there's no real thought behind it, just wanting everyone to feel a part of the team. What do you think?
It's an interesting point of view, actually. Like, especially when you put your point forward like that, because there may be merit in it. He talked about Montgomery when he was at the Mariners. Like he had the picture up on the wall, and like was it he wanted to put like players' faces or something in it to make them feel like to build that sort of like team spirit. So I'm not against them building team spirit, but I don't know if that's his thinking behind chucking players on. Like I think there was method to what he was doing, but it didn't work. Rather than using a professional game of football to make people feel part of a team.
I think he's mentioned before that he doesn't need players to knock their pan in for 90 minutes because he will make subs and say, like, if you can be 100% for 70 minutes, go flat out for the next 20 minutes, we'll put somebody else and they can definitely do it for 20 minutes and we should have that level of performance all the way through. So there could be an element of that is replacing people so that they don't get fatigued. I didn't have a problem with making folk feel part of the team, and you get the benefit of that long term. And it could just be that now you've got a wee bit of short term pain where you have a night like that last night or Tuesday night where it doesn't quite work. We've seen it when it nearly didn't work, but it did work, which was against St Mirren in the Cup when we were kind of quite comfortable, and then looked like we were going to lose the game. So it could go either way. It's kind of like you said, got away with it if you like to put it in that way. but there is merit in doing it, but you do run the risk of having a meltdown like we had on Tuesday night. Hans said it's in the club's DNA, performances like that. Colin, do you agree with that?
No.
No. Is it in every club's DNA to have performances like that? Like everybody from time to time will have a game like that.
Hibs done it the other week as well against us. So,
And
but it wasn't in your DNA that day, but it was in theirs. Like,
yeah.
absolutely.
Elgin Hybe said, yep, but Seth, 2 points thrown away. Hibs' defensive frailty shining through yet again. Daz said, by the way, that Hanlon Rocky sub is an absolute shocker. Every game he needs called out on it. Who else constantly unsettles their back two mid-game every week? It's absolutely bizarre.
It's interesting, but that is, but it's the first time it's cost us. It's the first time folk have messaged in about it.
Mm-hmm. Dawson said Del Ferry was murder when brought on. Hanlon not much better, and the keeper was brutal. Monty's subs changed that game, but not in a good sense when we were in no trouble at all. Just on the subject of Del Ferry, like he was obviously had a message through Instagram, a racist message. I think there are no positives to that, but I think if you were to find something that didn't look like it came from a Hibs fan, this looked like somebody not connected to the club. So I think it's, there's a point to be made that it's not a fan that's racially abused him, because I think sometimes we're quick to criticise our own. And so maybe a point where we can stand up to it, but it's absolutely disgusting to see that, and we're obviously right behind Alan for that. Nobody should be receiving that kind of message in this day and age. Fucking shocking, really. Okay, right. So that's Tuesday night done and dusted. When we come out the ground, there was a few messages on the phone, a few articles got up on BBC and the Scotsman with the news that Bill Foley, who owns Bournemouth, is interested in taking a minority holding in Hibs, but investing enough money to make us comfortably third place. Colin, talk to me about your initial thoughts on that story.
So I've not paid much attention to it. I'm one of the, like, you know what I'm like I wait and see, like, till they tell us it's happening. It's all rumours and that in a way. So I'd like us to get some money in and spend it. That's my thoughts. But I've no idea why you would do it. I don't know if if the papers have got ahead of that. Like, it's one of them, like, what's in it for them? Because you're not putting money in it for the sake of it. There's got to be something in it. There's got to be some return on it. So I'm a wee bit dubious for that, but I like the idea of getting some cash and spending it.
I can answer the what's in it for him, because he's spoken about it on that. I think it's called Men in Blazers, the podcast that's been shared. I think it's a Bournemouth fan that does it, but he talks about. Have you heard of John?
No.
Okay, so it's in our WhatsApp group, by the way, so you can go back and reflect on this. I'll try and summarise, right, because I've listened to it once and I tried to pay attention, right, but I'm like, I've not got the best fucking memory for these things. So the guy asked him, the host asked him about multi-club ownership, and he says, you try to buy a Belgian club. And he says, well, actually, Scottish Premiership interests me. There's, I think he says, there's a club in the top 4 or 5 in the country that's not going to take a lot of investment to get them third. Kind of consistently, third gives the gateway into Europe. If they're into Europe, it means we can get players up to a certain level that would then be able to move into Bournemouth's team. So it's like a sort of breeding ground for it. So he said what we would do is we would invest money so they get better players going in there. But if you ended up at Bournemouth, it's cheaper for them, because if you get a good player into Hibs, by the time they're ready to move on, they can buy them for Hibs for next to nothing if he's bought the player in the first place. Whereas if, say, I'll use the example of Jota at Celtic, right? So Celtic were able to afford Jota. They sold him after, season and a half, 2 seasons, for 25 million. So assuming we brought in somebody at that level and they're ready to go, they wouldn't have to pay 25 million for them. They might pay Hibs 3 million, right? Cover the cost, whatever it is. So there's a benefit there. And he said he would also use things like Bournemouth's like scouting expertise to improve the training facilities, all like these kind of things that just help support the infrastructure. But long term is to have a group that makes the most profitable bit, which is Bournemouth, more profitable and able to perform better.
All right.
So that's kind of the what's in it for him in his paraphrased words.
Mm-hmm. Good. I prefer it paraphrased. That's why I've not listened to it before. It was still verging on fucking too long though.
It was too long. Didn't listen. Fast forward like I could have been sitting to be plus 15 seconds, but or listen it on 2 times speed. So that's why he's wanting to do it. John, what are your views? You get any scepticism about it? Or you keep an open mind? You find it exciting?
Do you know, skepticism is a really good word rather than cynicism. One of the things I was curious about was what the ownership model at Hibs would look like, because I think we talked about the wealth of the Gordon family initially, and I had the same questions when they bought the club. Like, what's their interest? Why are they getting involved? But I think, would you find yourself in a situation? So you've got the Gordons who own the club, you've got HSL who have a percentage.
15, I think it's about just over 15% HSL have got now. After that was diluted by a lot, whatever the last share issue was.
Yeah, and then you'd have Bill Foley or whatever the consortium, the group that he's part of, that would have a percentage. So I'm thinking about the possible risks that would take place there and the possible board conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have, I think, effectively a millionaire with a majority stake, a billionaire with a minority stake, and then you've got HSL with 15%, and or whatever that looks like now after it had been diluted. And I think, well, how does that work in practice? And I did ask the question. I think you gave me a decent answer on it with regards to what sort of control or how much influence does a billionaire with a minority stake have over the future of the club?
It's a really good question, right? And I'll guess at it, right? And I have to kind of make it absolutely clear. This is just me fucking having a brain fart with it and no, like, speaking for a position of knowledge or anything like that, right? But I would think, right, so if I'm Bill Foley and I'm putting in X amount of money, now, the Gordons bought Hibs for about 6-7 million. I think it was round about that figure, if I remember right. Might have been slightly higher because they put a bit of money into the club at the same time. But even if you take that, say it was 10 million, right? The club's worth well more than 10 million now because of the investments that they've made. But Bill Foley, in order to get us to third, is going to have to put in more than 10 million. Right? 10 million wouldn't do it. It'd need a bigger investment than that. So you're saying he's putting in more money than the majority shareholder, but not asking for a majority stake in the club. Now, there's a reason for that, because at the moment, there are rules against dual control. For like, if Hibs and Bournemouth both qualified for Europe, for example, if Foley is a majority shareholder in both or controls both, I think that poses a problem. But as a minority shareholder, I don't think it has the same issue. You can have that interest, but not have the conflict. So there's a gain there. But I would think if he's putting in more than the Gordons have, his ask would be, give me a seat on the board. Right, you're not obliged to do it, but I'm going to ask for one. And I want to have like a technical director. And for example, I think that was mentioned in one of the articles, or even on the podcast. So you want to have a technical director and oversee things. So I think he would have a very significant say in the run-in because it's his money that's going in. He wouldn't have a legal ownership of it. Like, that would still remain with the Gordons. So I think for a safeguarding point of view for the club, that security is still there, that we've got a majority shareholder that's still ultimately responsible for the club. But there's no way, in my opinion, that somebody would plough in money well above what's already been invested to the club and not have a say in how it's run. Like, that would just be absurd. But it would have to be like a gentleman's agreement kind of thing to say, well, if I give you that money, you need to give me a seat on the board.
I think the scepticism also comes from the sort of feeder club element, because I think we've seen it touted, not just with Hibs, but in various clubs in Scottish football before. And I don't think it's ever borne fruit for anyone. So you want it, like, if this is going to happen, then you want to see a tangible outcome to it. You want to see, so like Brighton, for example, when that was touted, players ended up going to Hearts and Aberdeen. You're thinking, hang on a minute, are we not the ones that are meant to have an agreement, which apparently didn't exist? So you want to see if we're going to be, and you don't want it to be a sort of a token gesture either. You want it to be a player that's coming up here to make a difference, rather than just a case of, well, he's going up to Hibs because we're going to make him a better player and then we're just going to sell him on, because that could completely disrupt everything we're trying to do up here. So I think it needs to be carefully managed, whatever the final outcome is going to be.
There is an argument to say we're already a feeder club, just not to the one club. Do you know what I mean? Like when we get good players, they move on. So does it matter to us if they go to 4 or 5 different clubs or if they go to one club? You know, like that. I think in terms of like tangible differences, all it would mean for us as fans is we should in theory have better players to watch and a bit more success. But conscious of time because Colin, you need to get away shortly, and if you do need to duck off, don't know what I mean. John can that was duck off with a D.
Okay.
John and I can wrap up the last few minutes, right? I had asked for some opinions before on Twitter, so sometimes a dangerous thing to do with Twitter, but we seem to be quite lucky that most of the folk that send us in stuff are relatively sensible. Right? So we'll start with one of the sensible ones, which is Craig. He said, with Ron and his family coming in, X money has been spent on the stadium, the infrastructure, various managers, as well as a huge increase in the squad with the same results, which is inconsistent in mid-table. Should we use Bill's money for the best leadership coach, Simon Sinek? So there's an argument for that, but I did say, didn't have to go Simon, that kind of guy. Yep, exactly.
Was that what you said to him? I was saying that kind of guy.
Aye,
that wasn't you.
What was it on me? Jeff Ashton said, my initial reaction was excitement. It might accelerate the Gordon's project to make us as competent and competitive as possible. Having read a few learned articles on Foley and the business model, it looks very promising. Thumbs up from this happy clapper. Ventus Plenty said, not sure either way. Discussing this view will no doubt be box office listening for your listeners. And it is one I like. Yeah.
Maybe will.
Aye, don't know, might be good, might know. McCann C said, very positive for investment in first team players, not so much having to take loan players who are no better than we already got. Real money to invest in players we can build a winning team around, please. Ron Burgundy, by the way, I need to thank Ron Burgundy for his recommendation on who to get to Dave up after him. It was a good shout.
You didn't need to.
No, he'll listen and then it'll feel good because he's heard it. He's like, oh, that's me. He said, hopefully he doesn't get the treatment Ron Gordon got from fans. He's been wanting to invest for a long time, seemingly. I was chatting to a former senior stakeholder last Friday night. He has lots of things to say on the fans' scepticism of the Hibs fans towards Ron and family. And I think that's a fair point as well, John. Like, if you're coming in and about to plough a load of money, and it probably piss you off if folk were like, tell you they didn't want it.
I think it's so one of the questions I asked about Ron Gordon was about like why him, why now, why Hibs, why Scotland, and it's especially after some of the charlatans, let's say, that we've seen in Scottish football before. So I'm thinking about like the guys at Hearts, guys at Livy, for example. And it seemed like Hibs had done their due diligence on Ron Gordon, so hopefully the same would apply with Bill Foley. I don't think it's. I don't think I'm not comfortable with like this sort of red carpet treatment, like no questions asked for anyone.
That's a good point as well. Yeah,
I think it doesn't sit particularly well. I think there is that there's skepticism and there's outright cynicism, and I'd like to kind of like sit somewhere closer to skepticism rather than cynicism.
I think what I would love for people to do is to listen to what's being said on it for the people involved. So, for example, go and listen to the podcast.
Myself included. Yeah.
Where the guy explains, and Ron Gordon did this, and he's done it on numerous occasions, about what his intentions were. And it was always like turn a profit long term, but actually here's how we grow the club. And he was true to his word like the whole time. And now Ian and Kit have taken order and they've just taken over, they've carried on that work. There's nothing that's happened at Hibs that hasn't been, that doesn't fit with what we were told would happen. There's been no surprises, nothing nefarious going on. It's all been above board and true to their word. And I think that having that credibility should mean that if they're bringing somebody else in, there's grounds to trust them on that. And I agree with you, no questions asked is a bad approach to take as a support. We have to interrogate it and scrutinise it and make sure it's right. But part of that should be, let's just listen to the explanations folk are giving about it. Like, we shouldn't be 6 months down the line if a boy puts money in saying, why has he done it? Because we should know, like, it's out there, like, we know why he's done it. I think that movie mask with it is be skeptical, but be prepared to listen to what's going on.
Mhm.
Andrew Brown said, massively keen for this to happen, not just for any cash injections. The access to Bournemouth's scouting systems, sponsorship circles, and other contacts will be invaluable to Hibs going forward. A couple of key points for Alex. So the scouting bit I kind of touched on when I was saying what he'd said on the podcast, but I missed a bit about sponsorship, which he did talk about. So I think he's got a very big presence in America. The actor Michael B. Jordan, was he in Rocky?
Yeah, he was. Who else did they play? He was one of the bad guys in Black Panther.
Was he?
The other films he's been in, yeah.
Yeah. I know who you mean now. So I think he's got like a close connection to him. So I think they're able to attract big sponsorship, but I think the idea would be that this sponsorship coming from America, which doesn't really look at Scottish football, certainly, would be like a package where you can sponsor Bournemouth, but in doing so, you're also sponsoring. I can't remember who his other team is. He has a French team now. I can't remember. Begins with an L. Lorient.
Sounds about right.
Yeah,
it's not
it's
Leon.
Lorient. No, it's Lorient because I think somebody on Hibsnet said they thought somebody was just taking a shortcut and saying Leighton Orient. But I think it's Lorient. So the sponsorship deal would be give us loads of money, but you can actually sponsor the group. And then Hibs benefit from a much inflated sponsorship package than we would get currently. So there's wins there. And again, that all drives the revenue, which improves the team. I find it quite exciting, John. I have to say, it sounds like quite a fucking banal thing to get excited about, but I love the idea of Hibs being brilliant.
No, I don't think it's banal at all. I think you're right. It is quite exciting. It is. You just You want players, you want goals, you want results, you want trophies, and if the things that are being discussed feed into that and drive that, then I am all for it. And I think to go back to what you were saying before, like I think with regards to say like the commercial partners and the sponsorship and like being part of the group. So if you go back to some of the stuff that the Gordon family's done with like the pitch side advertising, and I don't think we've not seen it yet, but you know how they were talking about like the ribbons across was it the south stand and the main stand like that. I don't know if that's still to come, but there's certainly been evidence of the things that they wanted to do at Easter Road. So if future partnerships with so the people that came into the club that did that in the first place, if they're saying, to go back to your point about, trust us in what we're trying to do with the next sort of stage of the project, if you like, then you can get on board with that as well.
Stephen said, looks a good thing to me. With the Gordons also investing, this club is going in the right direction. We just need to get it clicking on the pitch. Andy Jeffrey said, can only be a good thing as long as we don't become a dumping ground. Hibs are a club with a huge blank canvas at the minute. The potential is huge, and I feel Kenzo, McDermott and Montgomery have steadied the ship. Now is the time to push forward. Further finances can only help. Ewan McAleese sent a wee link to a YouTube video called Satan Lent Me $1. Vancouver Hibs said, football finance expert Kieran Maguire said, as long as you're not just a feeder club, that would rile the fans, especially at a club as proud as Hibernian, if they were seen as a feeder for Bournemouth, a club who don't have anything like the heritage or history in the game.
I did actually read that article. I think he was one of the guys that talked about the model and the sort of like I forget what the terminology was, but it was almost like the suite of sporting teams that Bill Foley has. And I did take his point about that, because I think that's one of the things that would rile. And that kind of touches on the point I was making before about a player that comes up to Hibs because it suits Bournemouth rather than suiting Hibs. Like, I know that arrangement can work both ways, where we can get a really good player, but you don't want it to just be a case of like, here's half a dozen players that are going to get a game for Bournemouth, so we'll send them up the road and they'll get a game there. Where it has to be mutually beneficial, because the fans will quickly turn on it because of the point that the guy made with regards to history. Because we do it ourselves. Like, we look at, say, a club like, I don't know, let's say Brentford, for example, and you go, well, they've got a stadium that's maybe like 14,000, for example, but they are spending like stupid numbers of millions on players, and we can't do that, and it's purely because of the TV deal that they have down there. So I know it can't just be a dumping ground. It has to be, as I say, mutually beneficial.
I think what gave me comfort was the desire to see Hibs in Europe, competing in Europe, as like a serious player, right? So not Champions League level, but Europa League. Because I think they still acknowledge there's this sort of glass ceiling in Scotland where you come up against Rangers and Celtic very quickly. Once you spend X amount, unless you're prepared to go toe to toe with huge money for Celtic and Rangers, then what you want to do is be competitive in Europa League. And if you can be there in that space, there's a lot of money to be made. Now, you can't do that if they're only going to put players in just to give them game time. Then they need to be the right fit for the club and for the manager. So I think that's why they have the idea of like a technical director. So everything's lined up and there's a thought process behind everything that they do.
Just was something I was thinking about there. So he's got interest in it. Is it a Belgian side? He's got interest in a French side. He's got interest in an English side. Now he's potentially looking at interest.
An Australian as well. I think he's been a preferred partner for a purchase of an Australian A-League team as well.
So what my point was going to be was with regards to European football. So that's why I never mentioned the Kiwi side. No, that's all right. So I presume then that that the consortium or the group or however it is that you would describe it are quite comfortable that one of those teams may end up competing in European football while the three others don't. I guess the view is like to have all four of them competing in European football, but I wonder what the inner workings of that deal would be if, say, Hibs were to go and be in Europe, but the other three aren't. Do the other three then go, well, hang on a fucking minute, they're in Europe. Why are we not? Why are they getting the players and we don't get them?
I'm not sure because I think it will depend on the intricacies of the different leagues that they're in. I know for definite, like they were talking about the Australian players, Hibs would be a pathway to European or British football for them.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen it now. Like obviously we've got a couple of Australian players in the team just now. It's easier to get work permits to play in Scottish football than it is to play in English football. Right? So if you've got a player that doesn't qualify, so they might be good enough to play for Bournemouth but don't qualify for the work permit, you can get them into Scotland, get them playing the requisite number of games, to play at the required level, that the work permit becomes a gimme for them. So Bournemouth can sign them with no sort of strings attached. They don't have to turn down a player because they don't qualify to play in the league. So there are things like that will come into play, but I'm not sure how it would work with the European football, whether one team would take preference over another. It's it'd be interesting to see. It'd be a nice problem to have, wouldn't it? Like if you just get you're in Europe. Tom Wallace said, "I'll believe it when Bill Foley raises a Hibs scarf above his head at Easter Road." This is like it's all hypothetical now, isn't it? Like we need to see it happen. Stuart Anderson said, "If we are going to make us a third force and compete with the top two, then I'm definitely for it." Neil Renton says, "If you invest millions, what one on the field and one off the field investment would you like to happen?" He would like us to sign Messi, and he'd like us to build an assault course outside the stadium where you get free entry into the game if you complete it. So, John, one on the field investment and one off the field investment, what would you like to see?
A left-sided centre half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
Left-footed, the left-sided centre half.
Yeah.
Off the field, do you know? I'm not sure that I'm going to come up with anything better than assault course. Like, is there going to be like fatigues thrown in as well? You know the camouflage ones. I'm thinking like the army assault course that you would see on the TV where they're climbing up walls and jumping
like
over
in the
logs.
Krypton Factor.
Aye, like is there going to be like netting that they have to army crawl underneath, and is there going to be live machine gun fire going off over their heads?
I hope so. I mean, that sounds like it would be a good off the field investment. To be fair,
I do like the idea of some sort of like mental or physical challenge outside that would get you free entry. Mm-hmm. That's a novel idea.
It's like sort of proving yourself worthy to attend the game, isn't it? Like that. It's not enough to just buy the ticket. Like you could buy a ticket and just buy your way into the game, like the traditional way, we'll call that. But let's go all gladiatorial and you prove your worth and have to squeeze your way in through a series of physical and mental tasks.
If you're talking gladiatorial, do you think we should get a Colosseum at the back of the main stand and just have people fight to the death, like fight lions and...
Nah, because you know what would happen? Folk would go, fuck, we'll not watch the football. We'll just get another fight.
The Colosseum.
Aye, it would become counterproductive. I would like us to get to the point where we are so good that we need to expand the stadium. Right? That would be the off-field one that I would like to see happen. That not that we would need to move the stadium, but that we would say let's put another tier on the West, for example, or fill in the corners, like, whatever stand. Let's make it fucking so that we're selling out a massive stadium full of Hibs. Where we could do what Rangers and Celtic, cut the fucking away allocation and fill up
What
because
do you
people
think the
want to see it.
conversations on this podcast are going to sound like if in 5 years' time Bill Foley's investment gets us into European group stages where there's real money to be made, like real improvements can be made to the squad and the infrastructure and what have you, and then on a Tuesday night we throw away a 2-goal lead and lose to Ross County? Are we going to have the same? Are we going to have the same sort of like level-headed conversation, or is it just going to be wild? Like, this is unacceptable. Montgomery has to go. X, Y, and Z players should never play for the club again, because you've seen it with some bigger sides. Like, remember when? Well, look, like Ranieri when he won the Premier League with Leicester, like he was emptied the following year because he wasn't good enough. Like the results weren't good enough.
It should have been a job for life, that one. As soon as you win the league with Leicester, you should be untouchable. After that, yeah. Listen, we'll stay grounded, John. You know us. Like, we'll still accept it can happen, right? We'll be realistic. Right, G Hibs said a decent investment in the first team and the women's team would be good. That's another good point as well. We'd like to see, because the women's team, I think, because the difference in spending between Hibs and like Rangers, Celtic, like Hearts are putting a lot of money into the women's team just now. But there's a risk that Hibs women's team, who were very, very competitive at the top of the Scottish game until very recently, get left behind. So I'm all behind that. All for that point. I'd like to see that investment going there too.
Could I also make a sort of interlink point with regards to the women's team? So I think there's been a bit of chat with the women's team playing at Easter Road more regularly. But I think there would be an impact on the pitch if you have two sides playing on it per week, and I don't think that would be helped by the fact that Easter Road in particular during the winter months there isn't a hell of a lot of sunlight. So going back to Neil's point about on-the-field investments, heat lamps, all that sort of stuff that helps the pitch growing.
I thought you were going to go, Spurs have got the American football pitch underneath their football pitch.
Whatever it looks like, whether it's heat lamps or whether it's so much money that we can have like 2 pitches and we just rotate them. Or 4 pitches and we rotate them.
Would you have it so that it swiveled like that? Do you know like hidden bookcases in films? Do you know when they pull it and it spins them round, but kind of flip around over the horizontal axis?
Provided that there was a special book in the boardroom and they just kind of like tweaked that, and that's what flipped the pitch.
You could every now and again pick which referee you wanted to get in depth with the inspection, like a pool of sharks underneath it or something. J. Caldwell Anderson said every time we get millionaire investment, our mediocre staff get bigger. Looks a bit like money laundering. I think that was tongue in cheek. Dave Hibbs said the SFA will stop it. I think the SFA are actually talking now, or the talks to reduce the barriers to multi-club ownership rather than increasing them, and they're looking at doing it on a case-by-case basis. Gaza said a bit concerned about how much commitment the Gordons have for clubs. I think fans should be told their plans for the future. Hammy 5 said please and thank you, Bill. And a couple more. We've got Thomas said, Bill spoke about having a sponsorship in mind for the Scottish club. Can you see us playing in the McDonald's Arena in a few years? How would you feel about changing the stadium name? So, 2 points to pick up on there, right? So, Gaza was about, are there any concerns about the Gordons' long-term plans with this news? And how would you feel about a stadium name change, John?
I'm not overly concerned by a stadium name change, because I think to each and every one of us, it's still going to be Easter Road. Mm-hmm. So, for example, I don't know how many times it's undergone a name change, but I still think of the Tony Mack Arena as Almond Vale. And I think it's had at least 3 name changes since then. And they obviously don't have the same sort of history that we do with Easter Road. And if you might call it the McDonald's Arena, you might call it the FedEx, whatever it happens to be, it's still going to be Easter Road. So no, and if it brings more money in as well, and I think that's going to be that's the one thing that's lacking in Scottish football, like particularly outside of Celtic and Rangers. It's investment, it's growth, and because all clubs I think are just completely hamstrung by it without outside investment. With regards to the Gordons' long-term plans, what do you think the long-term plan is? Like, from my perspective, I think we've seen like that sort of like short to medium term. It's obviously
Mhm.
been hindered. Is hindered the right word? So we've been hindered by COVID, or it was hampered by COVID, and then
Yeah.
obviously we've had the sad passing of Ron Gordon. But it seems like, to go back to your point with regards to what they've done since they've been in charge, and now they're kind of like looking to move it on to the sort of like the next stage. Like, I don't think it's a long-term plan as such, but you can see that continued improvement, if you
Mhm.
like.
Yeah, I think the Ron Gordon's aim was definitely to kind of get out with a profit. I get the feeling that, and this is again just from what I picked up from the way that people speak about them, but I know Ian Gordon and Kit Gordon are very emotionally invested in Hibs as much as anything. I think their intentions are good. I don't think the club is going to be put at any risk. They might still sell it at a profit, but I think they'll be very careful at who they sell it to. So it would be nice to hear that reassurance, and I'm sure that will come. That those questions will get asked if that investment goes ahead, won't it? Like there will be journalists out there that will ask the question and say, "What's the long term plan?" As they're trying to talk down what's happening, is what to happen in Scotland. Hans said, "Get him to invest in the playing squad and get the dead wood out." Fred Leggett said, "We can embrace investment and progress, or turn it down and continue to stutter mid-table forever. Playing in Europe regularly or battling always for the top six. I know which I prefer." This is a really good point for Fred. And I made the point on the private board in the Hibs network about, so I'm 45, right, about to turn 46 a week today, if anybody's wanting to send birthday cards and that, right, except all kind of vouchers, no bother. I've never seen Hibs be properly good, right? Like properly good, right? We've had some good teams. Probably like the best would be like Sozi Latipi era, right? Which I can remember seeing. But we've never been like a force in Europe. You know, like I could talk to my dad who will remember when we played like Barca or Real Madrid and gone toe to toe with proper European giants. We've never seen it. And we're not talking about that happening here, but it would be nice before my days are up, right? And hopefully they're a long way away, to see us go and have like a properly good team. Kind of when you look back and go, fucking hell, Hibs are a good team. But we can win in Scotland, we can win cups, and we can qualify for Europe, and we can have a team that's fucking good to watch.
Rather than talking about it being like the Mowbray era, so that like the era was what, a couple of years.
Season and a half, 2 seasons.
Then you got a cup under Collins, like, so rather than talking it being like sort of like individual moments, you want to talk about it being like, oh, the team from like 2025 to 2030 was really good. There's never, I think that's the thing that's been missing, is there's been good moments. You've had what, 4 cup wins, I think, in the last 30 years.
Yeah.
But we've never been able to kind of like capitalise on that and take it to, like, so we finished third, but we've never been able to finish third twice in succession. We've qualified for Europe, but we've never made the group stages. Like, they are the sort of the milestones that, like, once you start hitting those milestones, that's when you hopefully start to get that consistent success.
My worry is, if it's not us, who's it going to be, right? So we already saw, like, we lived through the Romanoff era at Hearts, where we got fucking regular scuddings of them. They won the Scottish Cup against scudded us in it, because they've spent loads of money, right? And obviously this is different because Romanoff was a proper charlatan and effectively cheated their way to, those successes by not paying for it as they should have done, right? But that's by the by. We're not talking about that. And I can see there's that reluctance from some people to kind of go and just accept this might be a good thing because of those reasons. But for me, I'm like, actually, we're just the best team in Edinburgh constantly. Do you know, like, and you're going into derbies confident. The worry is, if it's no us and they do it, then we're already spent less than them. We already have that shit derby record and stuff like that. The prospect of it just being much worse for fucking the rest of our days is grim. Fuck that.
Yeah, no.
Let it be us. Let us be the ones that are kind of looking at everybody else going, oh, I wish it'd been us.
It's getting people to join you on that journey. I think, is of being happy to be like the better team or the best team in Edinburgh, because from my perspective, and I'm one of those people that wants to be taken on that journey, my reluctance to kind of go all out on this is I didn't want to be like them. I don't want to exhibit the superiority complex that they have towards us.
I do. I'd quite happy to be Tadger and Gorky giving it as we've gone like our 40th game unbeaten against them. Aye.
Well, it'd be good. So there's another like massive milestone. So we have it rammed in our throats constantly about 22 in a row. Like they conveniently forget like the number of draws. Like, could you imagine if we were to usurp that through this investment? That would be phenomenal.
Exactly.
Like I'm along for that journey.
It would be delicious, John. That's kind of I just think like the risk of it going to another team and us being on the receiving end of that stuff is just, I mean, it's already hard enough watching Scottish football when you know you can't win the league. And you're an outside bet, at best, an outside bet for the cups. And then the derbies, you might win one, you're probably going to lose it. Like these ones are like they're 50-50, they're in the balance. It would be nice just to kind of go into these games going, fucking, how many is it going to be today? So I mean, like, who we beating today? It's all right, good. We'll get 3. I'll put my bets on 4-0. Right, and then we dish it out to them for a wee while. I'd quite happily. We've taken it for years and years and years. The prospect of getting a bit back, fucking, it's like Man City fans will never be sad that they're tanning Man United all the time. You know what I mean?
I wonder if there's maybe an element of, I don't know if you'd call it Stockholm syndrome, but like part of that journey of where I am, that reluctance is being happy with winning all the time, because I see other teams that are winning regularly. So like you look at, say, Celtic, for example, it's a bit shit watching them. Like, and like, could you imagine, like, because we quite enjoy like dissecting Hibs games when, you know, say managers are not particularly good or the results haven't gone particularly well. Like, is that the end of Longbangers, say, if we are winning most weeks?
Because we're still not going to beat Rangers and Celtic regularly. They're still going to spend more than us. Do you know what I mean? We'll just be closer. So we might beat them now and again. It's going to be more exciting. You might have less of us moaning about a 2-2 with Ross County, but it'll still happen. We're not going to be, again, Man City. We're not going to be Celtic. It's that sort of, it's almost like a perfect level for us to still have that authentic football fan feeling and not get too far ahead, but to enjoy going, knowing you're watching a good team. Stuart has said, just phoned the ticket office asking for a seating plan for the new corner seats. Good shout. Dean says, hopefully get some investment into a competent catering company, bespoke agreement with decent local bakery to provide pies, etc., etc. Get Alan's Bakery in for the kebab pies. Mikey Love said, the price of football pod expert talked about it and summed it up well, to be honest. Whilst there's some concerns about us becoming a feeder club and such, if overall it makes us more competitive on the pitch, it can only be a good thing. And Gareth Falconer said, will it bring kebab pies to the ground? Well, yes, just see your last comment on Alan. So,
just to go back to that point and something you mentioned earlier on, like in some capacity, like Hibs are a feeder club for other people, but or other teams, like regardless of whether it's 1 or whether it's 5. I think one of the things about being a Hibs fan that I enjoy at the moment is that the players feel almost relatable. So whether it's like Martin Boyle, Paul Hanlon, Lewis Stevenson, whoever it happens to be, like it feels like those players are approachable and relatable to a certain degree. And one of the concerns might be that whatever players that come to Hibs, say through an arrangement with Bournemouth or Bill Foley's investment, is that you never quite get to enjoy them or fall in love with them the way that we have with other players in the past. So we, like Martin Boyle's journey with Hibs, for example, has been, 7-8 years in the making. Like we've got to see him become however much it was. Let's say he was a £1 million footballer that moved to the Saudi side, having been playing 3.5. Sorry, you're right. And that was enjoyable. But we have the same affection and attachment to the as yet unnamed player or players that come in and kind of disappear again. Like we can enjoy the football, but there's going to be a little bit missing for that emotional connection, perhaps.
Tell me your thoughts on Grant Holt.
I was a big fan of Grant Holt.
How long was he here?
For But then is that not part and parcel of like the sort of cult hero? Like I think, did we
So
know that
how-
we only had him for a short period?
How can these boys not be cult heroes when they come in? It's like, what was the boy Mark Libra? I think like he was like brilliant for us. And how long did we have him? A season, half a season before we.
I
Like
don't even
he was
think
like
it was.
he was no time at all, was it? He was in the door and out the door. There's definitely I think if a player's good and they give everything for Hibs, the fans will like them, right? Fans are like a mediocre player that fucking knocks their pan in for Hibs. We've seen it like tons over the years. Players that are they're never going to trouble the Premier League in England, but they do a job and they work hard and they play with their heart in the sleeve. Or the cliches that you want to name, and we fall in love with them, and then they move on, and we're a bit upset until the next one comes along. Why would it be any different? You've just got somebody else, like a better player, that you're falling in love with a bit quicker.
In as few words as possible for the too long didn't listen types. Colin's not here, so I'm referring to him. How would you allay my concerns, or how would you bring me on that journey and get me over that fear of being good, like through this possible investment?
I suppose I would just ask you to think of the times when you've watched Hibs where it's peaked. Like, take yourself back into those moments, right? So it doesn't have to be like the ultimate peak, right? For when David Gray's header goes in, right? But I bet you, right now, if you shut your eyes for a second, you can remember the exact moment in your head. You can see it and what life was like as that header hit the back of the net, right? Because I can in my head, I can look around, I can see the folk ponding the stairs, hugging each other, folk crying, just fucking bedlam, like that moment, like that. Right? I can recall it. I can recall Latipi's goal going in the 6-2, right? And jumping up. I was at home, jumping up out my sofa and fucking cheering, right? These moments that you remember are the good bits, right? Think how you felt then. Just imagine you're getting that every other week, right? Or, 3 weeks at 4, right? The times where you beat Celtic, the times where you beat Rangers, and you go, that was fucking brilliant. Just having that, man, it's a good feeling. What's not like about that?
I don't know, and I can't. This is the thing. Like, I can't even describe why it is that I'm so reluctant to kind of like get over that hump. It's. I don't know.
Are you some kind of masochist, John? Just what we're.
But I think that's possibly understandable. Like being a Hibs fan for
this
40
is
years.
true. this is true. Right, listen, I think we should round up. We've finished all the comments. I'd love to hear more for folk and get their views on it, because I think it's right. Like, I kind of have a bit apart there about kind of getting all carried away with it, but it is right to be sceptical and have that lens on it to say, right, is this actually going to be right for the club? And hopefully it is, and hopefully it happens, and hopefully it works. Which is the other thing, is that they want to spend a load of money just for us to be sitting at the start of November in 7th place in the league, having no beaten Ross County. But I genuinely, if you'd asked me when that second goal went in against us on Tuesday night, listen, Matty, the devil himself has come up with a bit of money to mean you didn't have to watch this level again. I'd have fucking bitten your hand off for it. So having somebody who's well intentioned, isn't going to request my soul in exchange for the investment, well, let's get on board and see what happens. Better us than them.
Yep.
Anyway, right. Thanks for your comments, everybody. John, thank you so much for your time. We've overrun a wee bit. We're kind of keeping into, as I call it, feature length territory. We're almost a James Cameron film or a Scorsese film here. So thanks for tuning in. If you've not subscribed already, go and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
County line I pledged upon. Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee.